Today is Holy Saturday. Tomorrow is Easter Sunday, Resurrection Sunday, the day when we celebrate the bodily resurrection of Jesus from the grave. And this is the fundamental thing which differentiates Christianity from any other world religion. And it's the reason why I'm not a Muslim or a Hindu or a Buddhist and why I am a Christian. Because Christ rose from the grave. He bodily rose from the grave. We don't follow a dead prophet. We follow a living Messiah who overcame death and appeared to his disciples with a body. This was real. It wasn't imagined. It's not a metaphor. Christian belief is that Christ bodily overcame death. And this is profound for a whole lot of reasons. For me, it's the only way you can really make sense of the evidence. When people ask me, well, why do I believe this really happened? Why isn't this just a fantasy story? Why isn't this just made up? Well, first of all, Christ's body is missing. And if the Jews have got the body, they have every reason to produce it because they know that they don't want Christ to be seen as all-powerful and as having risen from the dead. So if they've got the body, or they know where it is, they just need to produce it. But they don't. The Romans have no interest in this myth, if it really is a myth being propagated in their midst, because they are very clever and very careful about how they govern people, and they know that you need to keep control. And the last thing they need is a sect running around which is able to prove to people that their leader is actually a promised Messiah, that he is the King of the Jews, as he claimed. That would be an absolute disaster for them and their control of those regions. But they can't produce the body because they don't have it. So perhaps, maybe the disciples have taken and hidden the body, but that doesn't make any sense of what we see played out in front of us. Here are a group of followers of Christ who are in that upper room and they are petrified. They are on the verge of disbanding and running in different directions. And then we are expected to believe, out of absolute fear, they've gone and stolen the body and managed to overcome professional Roman soldiers who were highly trained killers and who knew what their job was when they were put in charge of guarding that tomb. They've taken that body, they've hidden it somewhere else, and then they've perpetuated this lie and claimed that Jesus really rose from the dead. This does not make any sense. First of all, in the time of Christ, the test of your man, your Messiah, as to whether he really was the Messiah or not, was whether or not he lived. If he died, that was a foolproof litmus test that he wasn't who he claimed to be. So that was the model the disciples had been operating under. It makes no sense for them to try and trick the model, if you like. But let's say they were so psychologically invested in this thing that they sort of felt foolish and they felt they had to lie to keep the myth going. Why did they all go to their graves for this lie? Why did they all, bar one, go to martyrs' deaths professing that Christ was resurrected? Why would they do that? Why did none of them at any point ever let the cat out of the bag? I mean, it's hard enough to keep one or two people maintaining a conspiracy, let alone a much larger group of people maintaining something that is a lie. And if this is a lie, why have they gone from the state of absolute fear, on the verge of disbanding and running away, to being willing to go out in public and scream it from the rooftops that Jesus is resurrected from the grave, and, like I said, to go to their deaths for that? Psychologically, that makes no sense. And if they have perpetuated a lie, why have they not created a lie that is actually for their own benefit? Why have they created a lie that is detrimental to their well-being? When you lie about something like this, you do it because you want power or fame or money or prestige or something out of it. But they perpetuate a lie that denies them deliberately all of those things. And not only that, but the source documents of that lie, if you like, the gospel accounts, the things that they are telling people, clearly have parts and passages in them which make them the perpetuators and the new leaders of this lie, this grand deception, out to be absolute bumbling fools and idiots. Why would they do that? If you were going to create a mythology, why wouldn't you have a mythology where the Messiah is heaping praise upon you, the new leaders of this fake religious group? Why wouldn't they have accounts where Jesus is constantly talking about how important and how awesome they are, instead of accounts where Jesus at one point is literally saying to the leader of the disciples, "Get behind me, Satan." And he's often talking about how little faith they have. This does not paint them in a good light. If they're going to create a lie, why do they have a woman as the first witness to the resurrection when females had no legal standing and could not be legal witnesses to things? None of this makes any sense. The only thing that really makes sense of the evidence is that Christ was who he said he was and that he bodily rose from the grave. And it is Christ's resurrection from the grave which should give us that profound joy and fundamental sense of meaning at the heart of our Christian faith. This is the thing that separates us from any other religion. This is the thing which motivates and calls us outward. Just as Christ goes out from the tomb, we are also called to that new life in Christ, where we leave our tomb and go out into the world to proclaim that Christ is risen from the grave, that he has profound love for each and every one of us, and that he is calling into relationship with him the entire world. Today's Saint quote of the day comes from Mother Teresa, and she said this: "Joy is a net of love by which we catch souls." As this Lent draws to a close, and as we prepare tomorrow to celebrate the resurrection of Christ from the tomb, I think the challenge that lies before us is whether or not we really are animated by joy, whether or not the resurrection of Christ is something that is so central to the heart of who we are as Christians. Does this resurrection animate and bring joy to our faith? Is our faith living and vibrant, just as Christ is living and has overcome the tomb? Just as Christ goes out from the tomb into the world, are we also going out into the world to proclaim Christ to the culture around us? And if we're not doing that, why not? And if our faith is not animated by that joy of the resurrection, then why not? As Pope John Paul II once famously said, we are an Easter people. The resurrection is the central hallmark of our Christian faith. So the challenge before us as we prepare to celebrate the resurrection tomorrow is this: for you and I, is that resurrection really the central hallmark of who we are as Christians? And if it's not, what are we going to do about it?